Hey guys, this is the beginning of the BMW Museum, and the entrance fee to get in here is 17 euros for adults. This is in Munich, Germany. Comparing it slightly to the Mercedes Museum in Stuttgart, which I think costs 16 euros. The kind of idea is quite similar, but of course this focuses on the BMW cars and motorbikes, whereas the Mercedes Museum focuses on the Mercedes and Daimler history and the cars. But having walked through both museums, I think the Mercedes Museum is, well, it has more history because it was founded earlier, but they also, I think, have more cars and more interesting looking cars. So if you would need to choose, I would definitely go to the Mercedes Museum rather. The BMW, this is one of the first cars you can see here. This is from 1929, so it's not quite that old compared to the Mercedes first engines and cars, which were from 1880 or somewhere around there. Here's one of the earlier motorbikes from 1923, and well, they also had plain engines. So this is from 1916, and well, this was around the First World War, and after the peace treaty, Germany was banned manufacturing aircrafts, and all aircraft engines were not needed, so BMW had to pivot, and they started focusing on other motor vehicles like motorbikes and cars. On this wall there's a really nice selection of different bikes from the early 1920s and 30s, and yeah, on the lower floors you can see a lot more bikes. So if you're interested in motorbikes and motorbike history, perhaps own a BMW motorbike, well, definitely this is a very interesting museum for that. So one reason why I'm inclined to say that the Mercedes Museum is nicer is because it has more cars and, well, yeah, less motorbikes, which I'm not that interested in. But here, for example, we see one BMW from 1939, and you can see this iconic front grille design, which they already had in the early times. Here we also see some of the racing history. For example, this was I think a Sauber car. If you're interested in looking closely at quite a few engines, they do have a full long aisle of engines here. They also have some more plain engines here. This is one from 1944 with a jet engine, and there are some prop engines over there as well. What I find nice about the BMW Museum and the Mercedes Museum is that you start the tour from the top floor, and then you kind of slowly move downhill, and you don't need to climb stairs up, so they have made it really accessible. It's a nice viewing area to some, yeah, maybe more interesting cars, some cabriolets from, like, I think 1934 and 1936. That one especially I find quite nice, from 1936, and you can see that already on those early days they had this tall front grille design, which they kind of changed and made wider in some of the more modern cars, but now recently in the new electric Neue Klasse series they have done that kind of front grille design, a bit more modern, but still kind of kept that shape, and I find that's really cool. Then here in the room number 7, we are going into the 5 Series cars. Those are not 5 Series cars, but in here we have the kind of early beginnings of the 5 Series. The first ones were, of course, a lot smaller, but yeah, they got bigger during the years. And if you have ever owned the 5 Series cars, you would most likely recognize some of them. For example, I have owned one of those F10 cars, so this one is very familiar to me. I had the or actually it was the F11, the taller version or longer version. Then there's the G30 5 Series that actually I have currently, a 530e. So this one is exactly like it, and yeah, kind of cool that they have this one also in the museum. The interiors are also exactly the same. And then they have the current one, the G60, which started in 2023, and yeah, it's kind of a bit of a refresh, and you have a new screen, and you also have the ventilated seats and stuff like that. One thing which I kind of find a shame that it's not in historical order. Like in the Mercedes Museum, you had a lot of stuff in historical order, so I found that to be very nice. Here, like parts of it are in historical order, but not all of it. This room with some racing motorcycles, which again I'm not that interested in. Here we have a different view for the same set of cars. And yeah, the room numbers make sense that they are increasing in size, so you don't get lost in the museum. This one I find interesting. This is a design vehicle, the Neue Klasse design vehicle, which, well, of course, was just a design vehicle, which never was then mass produced, but it was kind of the early images which we saw from the Neue Klasse cars. I find it's a good looking vehicle, and the actual production Neue Klasse cars, the first ones which have come out, I think are also looking very good, so that's a nice refresh which they made. Here we have a room with some more engines, and I find this is quite interesting to see the vehicle platform. And here we can see this seems like a hybrid platform, since it has the battery here in the middle, which is not that large, and they kind of use the same platform, so that's where the drivetrain would be. And I think in the rear the smaller engine must be an electric engine in the rear, and in the front then we have the petrol engine. And well, even though hybrids like these are still made, this is kind of a old-fashioned way, in my opinion, to make a car, because looking at the size of the electric engine and looking at the size and complexity of the petrol engine, the electric engine just makes a lot more sense, and you have a lot less braking parts, a lot less moving parts in the electric engine, and you have the simplicity of just having one engine. And then you can also do the high voltage battery as a structural battery on the bottom, which of course gives you more room inside. And removing that petrol engine, of course, drops cost as well. And then if you think about what's the cost of manufacturing small volumes of petrol engines, the prices of those engines most likely will go up at some point, which then will turn the tide towards the electric engine and the battery prices are dropping, so most likely at some point most of the cars will be electric engines, and well, all of the petrol engines will at that point be in the museum. Yeah, here we have again a nice wall of, on the same wall of those BMW bikes. Then we have this room of visions, which, well, I don't know, wasn't that interesting for me. There's a nice looking car at the bottom. Then we have room 30, which is transformation, well, towards the electrification. And well, yeah, here we see from 1972. I guess this was some kind of a concept or trial with electric batteries instead of the engine. Of course, those were old-fashioned batteries and not the modern ones which are used now. And yeah, well, here we have the iX, and I guess that's the iX platform, battery platform. And well, unfortunately, kind of this is still where the drive shaft would be, so I guess using partially the same platform. And yeah, well, okay, it's filled with batteries, but of course, like redesigning the whole car, doing a flat battery like some fully electric platforms have done, just seems to make much more sense if you're not leaning on selling petrol engines anymore. Here's a closer look at some of the more interesting cars. This 328 says it's a Roadster legend, and yeah, well, it looks really cool. Well, these ones look also quite cool. I'm kind of thinking like that's almost 100 years ago you had cars like this, which already seem quite modern to be 100 years old. This is also a fun car from 1956, the Isetta, which you go into the car from the front, and it's like a really small car with a small engine. And then we start to have some M series cars, which are the more sporty versions of the BMW cars. And yeah, here we have more M series cars, which are kind of meant for the people who are more interested in sports cars. Here we see the kind of redesign of that front grille. And here we see the logo of the current M series branding. Of course, like nowadays the electric i4, for example, you can get an M50 version of that, or I think for the i5 you also have the M version. So it's kind of the same car, but just branded as M series, and maybe it has a more powerful engine in it. Here we have some more race cars. Here we have a car which has had a Finnish driver, I guess. And here we see the Elvis BMW 507. This is a car which he drove while he was in Germany. Really nice looking car and a great piece of history. And here we can read more about that, like the time when he was in the US Army, military service in Germany from 1958 to 1960. The car was rediscovered in 2008 and restored and brought here. Here we have again one of the concept cars, which, well, I think is kind of cool, but the Neue Klasse I found a lot nicer, that concept car. Next tour continues up to the rooms 20, 21 and 22, and kind of this breaks the promise of having you go all the time downwards in the tour. So yeah, well, again, the Mercedes Museum design I think is a bit better. It works more nicely, and they have those wide open viewing areas. Here in this area we see some movie history on the walls, but yeah, not that interesting for me. Next section actually I haven't been to before. It says Italian car design. Okay, here we have some information on the walls, but I wonder if we actually have any more cars in here. That one looks nice. And this one is actually interesting. It looks like a bit like a Lamborghini, but it actually, yeah, it says it's a Lamborghini. Here we have the Isetta again. I guess maybe that's also inspired by Italian design. And the 700. Finally we have some more cars. Interesting color. Wouldn't be my choice. It's a 5 Series. Yeah, this one I like. 1962. 3200 CS. Okay, here we have some more cars again. Okay, now we have a cool looking car. The BMW Gran Lusso from 2013. V12 it says on the side. Yeah, that would be a cool car to test drive. It's a bit more sporty looking. It's set for Zagato. This is Nazca. I don't like this one. I mean, it would be interesting to try it, but don't really like the design. Okay, this is some kind of Neue Klasse model. I don't know, was this something which was done at the beginning 2024. Okay, here we have again some Italian inspired car design. It says it's M1 Hommage from 2008, and this is on the right side 1980 M1, kind of, I guess, the original. Again, looks a bit like inspired by Ferrari with the red color and slightly similar shape. Yeah, again, more of the 328, and then we have a Miglia concept from 2006, which I guess is, well, quite of strange shape. Here we have some more cars, but I think this concludes the BMW Museum tour. The BMW Welt is next door. That's free entry, and you can, well, I guess it has a kind of car store as well. You can look at the new cars which you can buy currently, and it has kind of interesting stuff as well. So you might as well visit there as well, and the underground parking is very good for coming here if you are traveling by car. And then there is a kind of a bridge which goes from BMW Welt to this BMW Museum. If you found this video helpful or interesting in any way, please give the video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.